Good morning, Tallahassee. It's time to Wake Up War Chant on 97.9 ESPN Radio. Now, here's your host, Aslan Hajavandi.
Welcome back. Your dreams were yours.
What's going on, everybody? I'm Aslan. Corey Clark will be back with us tomorrow. In the meantime, Five-Star Chaffel filling on, and Ira Chaffell's here. This show brought to you by For the Table Hospitality and their three awesome locations over in the College Town District, Central, Madison Social, and Township. Go ahead, check them out, wine and dine yourself. Ira, thanks for being here, man. How are you?
I'm glad to be here, man. I appreciate the welcome back.
Indeed, welcome back, man. How was Los Angeles?
It was nice, man. It was busy. It wasn't a social trip. It was pretty. There's a lot. There's so much going on. You got interviews, and you got to actually have to write and cover games, and so it wasn't the most relaxing few days, but no, it was great, man, and a great occasion to go cover Florida State basketball in the Elite Eight. That was something special.
Nice little run.
Yeah,
nice little run they had out there. It rained. It never rains in Los Angeles. Did it actually rain while you were out there?
The first day I got there, the first day and part of the second day, and people were like, "Oh yeah, you found the 2 days it rains in California." So I brought it with them. I brought it with me, apparently.
Did you want to say anything about your thoughts on the basketball season since you weren't able to we weren't able to catch up with you, obviously, with the time constraints and whatnot?
I was just talking to somebody yesterday about the whole, just kind of how you evaluate seasons, and again, I think it's funny that these two seasons kind of came back to back. Where last year, ultra successful regular season, kind of disappointing postseason. This was the exact opposite. It wasn't a disappointing regular season, but it wasn't what I think a lot of people felt it could be. And then all of a sudden, they make that great run, and I think everybody's kind of questioning how you evaluate it. But to me, the only thing that really bothered me about it was just that whole thing at the end with Dana Jacobson and all that, just because it took the focus off of, man, that was an awesome run. And then it became, okay, well, why didn't they foul? Then it became, okay, why did they rush a three? Why did they do this? And that's what we do in sports. And I think that's the other thing that kind of, one thing that bothers me about us in the media and fans in general is anytime your team loses, you think, okay, we should have played that guy more. We should have done this. We should have gone to zone. We should have done this. And it's like sometimes there's not a right answer. Sometimes, you get beat by a better team. And so that part kind of frustrates me a little bit because it turns everything negative when you just made the Elite Eight for Florida State basketball.
Listen, in October, if you guys were doing headlines and you're like, hey, I don't know how many games they're going to win, but they're going to make it to the Elite Eight and be within two scores of making it to the Final Four. Like, your thoughts, like, everybody would sign up for that.
Yeah.
And it's such a weird thing, I guess, because as a football fan, I legitimately don't think there's any football game that I've ever rooted for Florida State where I've gone in there bracing for failure outside of those games against Tebow when it was just over. Like, you just know, you're just like, it's just not going to happen. Like, 06 here, we almost snuck one against them. Like 07 going to the Swamp, you're like,
I'm thinking 2015, man, rolling, Golson and McGuire out there against Clemson.
I still felt all right. Actually, no, I didn't feel that good, but like, you don't brace yourself for just like unmitigated disaster.
No, you still had like, Dalvin, and you're feeling
like who knows? And then what? Like the first play of the game, didn't Dalvin bust it? And I'm like, let's go. So, and then with basketball, I don't know, like, you have to recalibrate things, and I don't know if that's, again, like a loser's mentality or whatever, but I don't know. Listen, man, we made the Elite Eight. 4 or 5 point loss to make it to the Final Four. I'm totally content, and there's really nothing strategically that made me. And again, I don't know enough about X's and O's when it comes to basketball to even really second guess anything.
I wonder if Michigan hit a few more threes and they won by 12. I wonder if people could have reconciled it a little bit easier because you weren't so close.
Right.
I think that's kind of the frustration is you were so close, and you just make a couple better decisions, make a couple more shots, make a couple more key plays, don't turn it over as much, and maybe you win the game. So I think that's probably part of the frustration is you were so close.
Yeah. And I was talking to Corey about it last night.
And you don't know whenever you're going to get there again.
Yeah, well, I was talking to Corey about it too, and I feel like losing the Elite Eight is just more painful than other perhaps than losing in the actual national championship game. Because, like, man, you make it to the Final Four, like, that's just the coup de grace of everything. So to get that close was a bit of a bummer. But again, the future's very bright for Florida State basketball. Speaking of bright futures, man, I want to go ahead and I'm going to sell all my Jacques Patrick stock right now.
It's high. Could be higher.
Jacques Patrick, best running back in Florida State history, or best running back ever. It's just amazing and like, I was in the same boat when I was a fan and I didn't have access. You see like one when you're limited in what the information you're getting is, you really value and treasure that. So Jacques Patrick throwing Janarius Robinson off of him is just like, Doak Walker Award winner, here we go. Let's go.
For anybody who doesn't live on the internet or the interwebs, on Monday morning at practice, Jacques Patrick became a social media phenomenon in our message boards as well at warchant.com because there was a play and they were doing Oklahoma drills, first day in full pads.
Yep.
And Jacques Patrick gets met in the hole by Janarius Robinson, a defensive end, a stout
big boy
at defensive end. Jacques had low man wins, and Jacques got a little bit lower, and Janarius ended up on his butt. And so, yeah, people just go nuts with that because, what it represents, and it's what you love about football. That's the guy you love. But to your point, I mean, there's a lot more to play in running back. And, yeah, for about 3 or 4 hours right there, Jacques Patrick kind of leaped to the top of the depth chart in the minds of many.
Cam who? Who? We got this Patrick guy, Cam who? I mean, there's literally a thread out there that's like the forgotten man. And it goes on just to gush about Jacques Patrick. And, he's a nice player. I mean, he's a nice player. Oh, no, it can be a great compliment to things, but you still need a guy who's going to be able to hit home runs, change a number on the scoreboard, from 45 yards out. I think Cam gives you that better opportunity. But it was cool to kind of, I guess, witness that. And a lot of it, too, is just the way he played it off. Like, Robinson bounces off and he just gives him that look just of pity and also disregard. Like, how dare you even think you could tackle me?
Well, and it was all like storybook because we interview the players now before practice. And so when we're talking to him before practice, he makes that comment about somebody asked about first day in full pads, and he's like, "Oh, we'll see who the contenders are and the pretenders," and then he talked about how this is we'll see if everybody's who they say they are. Yeah. It's like, man, he's like throwing down the gauntlet, like it's go time now. And then 20 minutes later, we walk out there. The first time he gets the ball, he's laying out a 250-pound defensive end. I mean, it was perfect for him.
He called a shot.
Yeah, he did, and so it was cool, man. And the thing about Jacques Patrick is, and I'm sure Willie Taggart's going to love him and his coaching staff's going to love him, is he does bring that. He brings that physicality. And I think some people have a misperception or misconception, whichever the right word is there, of what this offense is. And I think they think of spread offenses and they think of, it's all kind of on the edges and kind of finesse. But Willie Taggart wants to run the football. And Marlon Mack was a very physical back. Royce Freeman's a physical back. I mean, he wants a physical back.
Between tackles, like inside zone running. Yeah.
So Jacques Patrick's going to be very effective. But it's funny, what's funny also interesting is kind of the career arc for Jacques Patrick, because when he first got here, his first it was either preseason practice or spring. He might have come in the spring. But anyway, one of the first practices, I don't know if you remember this, he tweeted a video from practice, like he was watching film from practice, and he took out his phone, I guess, and snapped a clip of this play, and then tweeted it out like a practice highlight.
No. And what are you doing, freshman?
And it was him laying out like a walk-on.
Oh.
And it was it was it was cool. It was a big hit, but it's like a walk-on, and it's like now 3 or 4 years later he's laying out 250-pound defensive ends. But yeah, man, he's I think they're going to love him because they need that. I mean, they need the physicality. No matter what offense you're running, you need that physicality.
And so many people are always telling running backs now, like, go. You have a finite amount of touches. Just go, get your paycheck, and get the head start and get your second paycheck. But I don't know, like when you are going to make your bread off being the physical guy, why not stay in college as long as you can to dominate and show just how physically dominant you are? And then that way you're that much older when you do get into training camp and you are fighting for a roster spot. It comes back to so many things. You see guys declaring earlier, like, man, like, if you would have came back for one more year and done just decent, you probably would have been in a better spot as a pro where you're not going to have to, if you have one bad day in camp, you're probably not going to be able to dig your way out of it. So you see a guy like Patrick come here who didn't have any sort of, lock, stock, barrel shot of being a top 3 round pick guy, kind of guy. And maybe he can kind of change that or show a dimension more to showcase himself to become a better sort of running back for the NFL.
And I also think the versatility, Jimbo loved him and he would praise him and praise him and praise him. When he got hurt, Jimbo, when he was out for a couple games last season, Jimbo, and it looked like he was going to be out longer with that knee.
I thought
he might be out for the season. Yeah. And, Jimbo at the time was like, man, you don't realize how many things he does in terms of pass protection, in terms of getting guys lined up, just as a leader. I mean, he really brings a lot to the team. Well, now this year he stayed. He's going to learn an entirely new offense, which again is helpful in the fact if he can pick it up quickly, which I think he will. He's a really smart kid. Again, I think it all adds to his resume. You got the physicality. He does have some wiggle, and the fact that he's played in different systems, been a good leader, been a good teammate. All those things. People don't. I think a lot of times people just think it's bigger, stronger, faster in the NFL. But those other things sometimes are the difference between staying on a roster or not.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, getting to know different schemes, as you point out, will definitely help him because so much of the NFL now is going up-tempo and running spread stuff. So some of the stuff that we did see in the past was obsolete. Let's step aside for our first break of the day. When we come back here on Wake Up War Channel, we'll dive further into the football season, maybe talk about some facilities. Who knows how it'll go with us. Ira joining us here on the show today. We'll be right back after this.
You're locked in to Wake Up War Chant on 97.9 ESPN Radio.
Welcome back. I'm Aslan. Ira Schafel riding shotgun today, filling in for Corey Clark. He'll be back with us tomorrow or later throughout the week. He's doing fine. We'll see him soon enough. The Coracle. That's his new nickname. I call him the Oracle. He's like, why don't I call myself the Coracle? I'm like, all right, there we go. Clark's so witty, man. Thanks for introducing him to my life. I appreciate you, man. The show brought to you by For the Table Hospitality. 3 great locations over in Collegetown Central, Madison Social, and Township. Remember, free parking in the first 2 floors of that parking garage in Collegetown, Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. So it's always a good sort of option for you there if you got to get lunch over next to campus. So yesterday was the first full practice in pads for the Noles. We were able to watch about, 5 periods, 10, 15 minutes or so of it. So we got to see the Oklahoma stuff, which if you guys don't know what Oklahoma drills are, pretty much it's they're so short on quarterbacks that they had like a GA handing the ball off in one of them. One of the crazy things was actually, I didn't realize until somebody pointed out on the message boards, warchant.com, subscribe. DeAndre Francois ran over to Keith Gavin, was like jumping up and not that crazy, but like, whoa, hey guy. Let's ease on the brakes there. Yeah, but the Oklahoma drill, basically they hand the ball off to a running back, and then it's mano-a-mano. It's one offensive lineman on one defensive lineman. Defensive lineman's trying to shed that block and make the tackle. It's totally slanted for the offense because not only do you have to beat the offensive lineman, you have to also tackle the ball carrier. So it's tough to win those.
But they do put it in close quarters, right. So you can't because I've seen it sometimes where the running back has 8 yards on each side of and it's he just runs around them.
Yeah.
But it's close quarters, so they're kind of right in there. They kind of have to take on the tackler, and it's a tradition. It's something everybody gets excited about. I was glad we got to see some of it. That and board drills. I mean, the board drills is always another good one where that is mano-a-mano. It's just you and me. There's a board between us, and let's see who's going to win this battle. And I think that watching what we saw yesterday, I thought the offensive line looked pretty good. I mean, the defensive there were some defensive guys that won battles as well, but I thought the offensive players overall delivered some of the biggest hits. We talked about Jacques Patrick. Keith Gavin had a great block where he just buried AJ Westbrook.
Serving up pancakes, man. Call him IHOP.
And it's funny though because the perception is offensive players should never win those battles, but you're talking about. Keith Gavin is like a monster. Yeah. Jacques Patrick is a monster. It's not like they're just beating up these huge Herculean defensive players. Those dudes are as big as it gets.
Well, and listen, Keith Gavin wasn't going up against Marvin Wilson. Keith Gavin drew A.J. Westbrook.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
A.J. Westbrook got the odds stacked against him there, to say at least, say as politely as possible. But, that was cool also to see David Kelly and Walt Bell going crazy out there too. I mean, I'm going to start calling David Kelly Unc. I feel like David Kelly's everyone's uncle, even if you're white. You can just call him Uncle David. He's just the man.
He'd be fine with that, probably.
He's the dude, man. I saw Walt Bell tweet something out last night as well, too, just about he has never seen so many kids have so much fun working this hard. So seems like there's good vibes going out there so far, and even after they did the one practice and pads. And I don't know, what do you think? And this is obviously totally conjecture. Willie doing us a solid by doing Oklahoma's at the beginning of practice so that we can watch it, or is it kind of the guys are fresh, let's not do this at the end of practice? But I feel like back in the day, when Mickey was around, they would do that stuff towards the end of practice to really kind of separate the boys from the men.
Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe it was a first day of pads thing. Hey, we got pads on. Let's go ahead and go do this.
Right. Get the lather.
Set the tone. Yeah. But I think the the other thing about it is, we've made so much about the dancing and the music and all that stuff, and that's why I asked Jacques today. I don't know, you might have gone off, but I asked Jacques, I said, some people, we've talked so much about the dancing, and people are like so focused on that, and I think some people are wondering, like, are you guys actually like working too? And he's like, oh man, he goes, man, all that stuff's just for water breaks. He's like, we are working, we're putting in good work, and so and it's neat to see those guys, the seniors, buy in. Jacques Patrick, some of those older guys. Wally Aime is a junior, but he's making this position switch to from defensive tackle to defensive end. We talked to him about that. You can see that video up at warchant.com. But those guys, when you get the older guys to buy in, that's when, like what Walt Bell's talking about, is the whole job is so much easier. When you take over as a new coaching staff, the toughest thing is those old dudes who kind of came in under the old staff. They've played for the old staff for 2 or 3 years. You don't know what you're getting there. You don't know if they're going to compare everything to, that's not what we do, or that's not what we did, or Jimbo did this, or, Charles Kelly did that. This
Charles Kelly did it this way, darn it.
We're sticking with this.
This is what we're going to do.
But they, I just think that these upperclassmen have been very receptive, and they bought in, and part of that's a credit to this coaching staff, that these guys are believable. I think these guys, they come across as genuine. You talked about David Kelly.
Unk. Call him Unk.
Talk about Unk Kelly. Unk David. He, having had a chance to chat with him a little bit, he's just a real likable guy. And I think he's I get the impression he's kind of like Willie Taggart's kind of right-hand man, like his consigliere. I think he's
very good metaphor.
Side by side. Yep. I mean, so it's neat to see kind of, how he acts out there. It's all fun, man. It's been cool to watch, just because again, we're trying to kind of get a sense for how this all comes together as well.
Yeah. And I think what we need to also let people know is that the people you're seeing dancing, they're doing it during water breaks. Like, I've seen Nasir Upshur fist pumping and bobbing his head while waiting in line for a drill. I've seen Cam Akers dancing around while waiting for a drill. The O-linemen are not having fun. The defensive linemen are not having fun. The quarterbacks are not dancing. It's these guys that are in the larger segments that are waiting, 30, 45 seconds between reps, and they're just, there's a good song playing, and they're waiting in line with their buddy, and they're kind of bobbing around. My whole barometer I talked about with Corey was like Cam Akers, because I covered Cam in high school when I was in Mississippi. And to me, Cam, I would imagine a large part of the reason why he ultimately committed to Florida State was to come play for Jimbo and Jay Graham. I know he had a really good relationship with Jay Graham, and I think the whole fact that Jimbo's whole pro style sort of a thing translates and leads you well. You've seen what Devontae's done, and Dalvin obviously will be able to do. So I felt like maybe he would be one of the guys like, listen, I didn't come here to run spread offense kind of stuff, because that's what Ole Miss was going to offer him, right? I mean, Ole Miss was the competition for Florida State. They ran fast, up-tempo sort of stuff, but I've seen him tweet out, do something, and he's bought in. So to me, that's a really good sign, because I figure that might be one of the more people that might have been resistant to a kind of huge overall change in the tenor of things, but he's bought into it. And again, like, these are like, listen, Marvin Wilson, Odell Higgins ain't dabbing people out there or anything like that. Like, Greg Fry is not doing the stanky leg. They're putting guys through the paces. So it is a hard, grueling practice, but it's just kind of cool to see them have fun. And listen, and if they go 9-3, if they go 8-5, if they go 7-6, I don't think it's going to be because during the spring, during a water break, they were doing the electric slide or something like that. Dabo said that to Sugar Bowl when they were getting ready to play Alabama. Just like, he talked about, I don't think you have to walk around being miserable and hating life to be good at football. He's like, if we lose 2 nights from now, it's not going to be because my guys are dancing right now during media day here. He's like, it's not going to be the reason why. Now, they did go and lose the game, but he says that wasn't the reason. And I don't think anybody in their right mind would have thought it was. Just simply Alabama was pissed off and came for blood, and Clemson just wasn't ready. Well,
and it's interesting you bring that up, because I was thinking about this, and I was having a conversation with somebody recently about Clemson and about kind of what Dabo's done in terms of recruiting, how he relates to the players.
How weird is it that that's what we're chasing now? Like, Florida's chasing who? In what world how did this happen?
But it's bizarre. But the two things that they added to their program that's kind of helped them elevate to Florida State's level or beyond is that part of it, the culture, it's a fun place to play. Those kids enjoy it. They're happy to be there. I think it's really good with this generation of players. I think it really resonates. And then the other thing is that facility. It was a big deal. It is a big deal. But it's a big deal because of where they are. Like, they have to have that. They have to have the bells and whistles. Florida State, I think, could get by without it. But this is the conversation I was having somebody, because, obviously they're going to be doing something here with the facility. If Florida State then gets their facility, and it doesn't even have to be the same level as what Clemson has, but if they have a shiny, pretty new facility as well, and it's more functional and all that, and then you have a Willie Taggart who counters that fun, that atmosphere, and these coaches, it's more of a young feel and vibe. Now you've kind of moved. I'm not saying it's checkmate, but you've made a counter move in this chess game with Clemson, and you're still in Florida. Right. So how long is it going to take for Florida State to then just jump back up if, now you've answered the two moves that Clemson made with the similar moves, and you're in Florida?
Yeah, I think Clemson, we maybe sometimes undersell the talent that's in North Carolina, and I know Clemson's in South Carolina, but outside of like Atlanta, they have no geographic advantage on Florida State when it comes to recruiting, and even that might be negligible between Clemson and Tallahassee in terms of being able to dip into Atlanta. But yeah, right now, listen, for spring, it plays as a really good narrative, and we'll see obviously how it all goes over. But those guys genuinely seem to be, I don't know, like, listen, when you're having fun, Willie quoted, Ralph Waldo Emerson, something about like whatever you do in life, do it with great enthusiasm or something like that. And you're seeing guys from like Corey Durden, guys who redshirted last year, to guys like Marvin Wilson talking about how much, fun football is now. Like, why? And I'm almost talking to myself here, because so many people obviously were buying into Willie and the whole philosophy from day one. Like, what's bad? What really is bad about that? How can that be in any sort of way, shape, or form a bad thing?
Yeah, exactly. The only way it would be bad is if you felt like there was not discipline. But he's also at the same time preaching discipline and accountability. And ironically, that's one of the ways that kind of Jimbo and his crew kind of lost their way, was that there wasn't great discipline. There wasn't great discipline in the classroom. There wasn't great discipline in the weight room. There wasn't great discipline at practice. They're just, and you saw it on the field. It manifests on the field with some of those performances. So if you can get guys to be accountable and responsible and dependable, and then also have them enjoy it, that's what you want in any workplace. And again, you can have the happy-go-lucky boss, but nobody's productive. Well, that guy's going to get fired, and those people are going to get fired. But if you've got somebody that keeps everybody motivated and into it and invested to where they don't mind working, and they're part of it, they're looking out for the company, all those things, then it'd be a great thing. And I think that's the same kind of thing they're going for.
Yeah, I meant to run it the other day, but wasn't able to. But he said a quote, I think on Wednesday, or actually no, on Friday, when he said that we're not going to let fun come at the expense of fundamentals. And I was like, ooh, that like my spidey sense, like I started tingling. I'm like, all right.
You think you just riffed that off the top of his head?
Yeah, I'm like, all right, speaking my language now, Willie. I like you. Let's step aside for a break. We'll be right back after this on Wake Up War Chant. Ira Shafel joining us here in studio. It's ESPN 97.9 Tallahassee.
WarChant.com is the ultimate inside source for FSU football and recruiting. And now you can get in on the action for free for an entire month. WarChant.com is offering a risk-free 30-day trial subscription. Get full access to the #1 website covering the Seminoles just by entering the promo code WarChant30. That's WarChant30. Sign up and get in on the world's most active FSU message boards. Receive breaking news, stories from our award-winning staff, plus get exclusive interviews and videos. Just enter the promo code WarChant30. WarChant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source.
What's up, everybody? It's Wake Up War Chant right here on ESPN 97.9 Tallahassee. Tallahassee Sports Monster. I'm Aslan. He is Ira Shafel, the managing editor of WarChant.com. If you aren't to have a subscription to the website, go ahead, sign up, because he's run the ship. Make sure that we're all doing our jobs. Corey Clark will be back with us tomorrow, back here on Wake Up War Chant. Show brought to you by For the Table Hospitality. Their 3 locations are over in the Collegetown District, Central Township, Madison Social. Pick one of them, throw a dart at the board. You won't be disappointed. All right, Ira, as we continue to talk about spring football, we got to talk to DJ Matthews. He's a fun guy to watch, man. And I think one of the cool, or not the cool, but one of the moments that stood out was all like a 4-second exchange where it's just like, man, like every time you touch the ball, something kind of good seems to happen out here. like, where were you last year? Like, what happened? And he was like fun loving the entire interview, just like joking along. And he just like immediately the needle just skips off the record. He's like, yeah, I don't know about that either, man. And I'm just like, all right, DJ, we see you there, man. So, we got to speak to him. And then Wally, I thought it's May. Is it I may. I don't know. So he's moving from the inside to the outside. He's going to be a defensive end because I guess at the end of the day, there's bodies that need to be filled at that position. Yeah,
they were thin at defensive end. I mean, I think the top 2 or 3 guys they feel pretty good about. And they've got some guys coming in in the summer and going into the preseason. But yeah, they're a little bit thin there. So he makes sense. He makes a lot of sense. And I think, from what I understand about their defense, they're going to have one kind of big, strong defensive end. And then more and more of a pass rusher kind of defensive end. It's, there have been times through the years where Florida State's kind of viewed those 2 guys as kind of the same, either one can line up on either side, either one can do everything that the other one can do. But I think from what I understand in this defense, they are going to have like a big Hoss defensive end and then like more of a pass rusher. And so Wally kind of fits the bill of the big Hoss kind of defensive end. And, and he's a really likable kid. I mean, we talked to him. There's, again, video up on the site if people want to check it out. He's a real likable kid, and I think he's got a chance to be a really good player. And, I thought Willie Taggart's answer was pretty funny when he said, I said, what are the challenges to making that move? And he said, well, I don't really know. I didn't play down there, but it'd be nice to not be double teamed, which is true. I mean, that is one nice, unless you're DeMarcus Walker, you become a superstar, and then they do double team you. But DJ Matthews, man, back last season when he came to campus, I mean, he was super highly recruited. I mean, this isn't all just like out of the blue that he's this kind of talent. In high school, he was unbelievable.
I think he was a 5-star at one point. Then he
might have dropped to 4-star. But and
it was because of his size. It was not because of his ability. It's the fact he's just he's 5'9" and just slight build. So that's kind of what
he came over. His high school team played in Tallahassee. I can't remember who they played, but they came over here. And a friend of mine was at the game, and he was like, "Holy mackerel!" And I think they played him at quarterback. Like he was one of those guys that touched the ball in every single play and just wore the other team out, and just rack up crazy yardage. But I remember last year in preseason, we were out of practice, and I overheard him talking to another player, and he was telling him how he was going to take the punt return job. He's like, "I'm taking the punt return job," and the other guy was like, "Nah, man, we got Nooney, we got so and so, we got named off like 4 or 5 guys." And he's like, I am taking that job. And then we don't see him for like 10 weeks. And then finally he gets in a game like late in the season, and all of a sudden he's like snaring passes, making highlight catches, bobbling catches for touchdowns. And at punt return, he looks like a natural compared to what we saw certainly for the first 9 games of the season. So, yeah, man, he's everything he's built up to be. And then I think you put him in this offense, and it just feels like, it's just wind him up and go.
I really want to get a good feel. Seeing Walt Bell again tweet out that thing about he's never been around, guys that have so much fun putting in such hard work, and obviously with DJ's skill set. Like in terms of walking into a job, obviously we know it's Florida State, the tradition, the allure, all that kind of stuff. But man, just to have these pieces, like they haven't had anybody like that at Maryland. He hasn't had anybody like that at Oregon.
Or maybe you have a Stephon Diggs, and he wasn't there, I don't think, at the time, but you might have like one guy.
Yeah.
But you don't have this many guys.
You're like, okay, so I need like a jitterbug kind of, slippery guy in the open field like DJ Matthews check, but I need somebody who can go up and get the ball, and you're like, maybe this Tamorian Terry kid's got something. I need somebody who's going to be able to run like a 15-yard square and absorb something.
Post up a linebacker.
Maybe Keith Gavin can help you out. Just like they've got to be stoked. And I hope, I'm looking forward to hopefully getting to really kind of pick their brains on that sort of stuff, because it's crazy the talent that's out there.
I also, just from talking to some people the last few days, they've been amazed. From what I've heard, the coaching staff has been very impressed by not just the talent, but also how quickly these guys are picking things up and how diligent they like. That tweet is not just a social media, let me, tout our guys a little bit and build them up. Like, from what I understand, that's the conversations they're having amongst themselves is, man, this is going really well. Like, I think Willie said it back when you talked to him in Melbourne. He said that, or Brevard, he said that, he'd never been anywhere where the guys bought in so quickly, and now you're seeing it on the field as well.
Well, it happens in baseball where you go from player's coach to Lou Piniella, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's what you have to do. And, I think how quickly we forget that obviously, the rainbow offense was never a rainbow. It was clearly vanilla. So that when Jimbo came here and made things more complex, that was exciting. It was
everybody was hungry for it.
Yeah. And then I guess now you get to that point where, at maybe some point, a lot of these guys became mentally fatigued with all of it. And maybe not so much knowing the schemes, but just the way it was being enforced and maybe punished if you didn't know everything down to a T. So that when a guy comes in here and he's like, listen, I want to free things up for the most part, make it easier on you guys, just go out there, have fun, and play football, that it makes you that much more hungry and eager to want to pick up on a scheme like that.
Yeah, and I think it's sometimes it's how you teach, and I think that they had gotten into a place. Again, every staff is different, and there's different chemistry, and like you said, sometimes you need the hard asses, sometimes you need the
whoa, man, this isn't headlines.
Sorry, too early in the morning, my bad. But sometimes you need the disciplinarian, tough guy, whatever, and sometimes you need somebody to pat you on the back. It was just amazing watching. Just yesterday, like David Kelly coaching the receivers, and he likes
David
stops. He stops in the middle of a drill to call out a walk-on and compliment him on how much progress he's made in the last week. And that wasn't for me, my benefit, because I just happened to be standing there. It was for that player and the segment. That positive energy and DJ Matthews said in his interview is like he'll get on to you, but he also will praise you. And I think there probably was a little bit of lack of praising going on lately. And we weren't out there practice all the time, but it just felt like there was a lot more of the grinding, and a lot less of the other. And, and again, every staff's different and there's not one way to do it. But I do think from where this group came from and the fact they were just played a year that they did not have any fun, they lost a lot of games. Clearly there was a lot of stress and a lot of pressure around the program, that I think they're just soaking all this in.
Yeah, it gets to a point, my friends and I were talking about this in terms of, what happened, the things that happen on in life and society now where you have to tip. And you're like, why am I having to tip for this? Like, this is not a service. Like, you did your job, so why am I giving you any extra, benefit off of that? And I think maybe there was a point where, these guys are in your program for so long that you're expecting them to know all this, and you're not going to pat them on the back because they should know this by now. It's year 3. I'm not going to tell you good job. It's more like a finally way to finally figure it out there, Chief, where you got a guy like Unk going out there and coaching these guys up and giving the positive reinforcement. Because no matter how highly touted these guys are, no matter how diva you think they are, man, listen, everyone's got their own insecurities and everything they're battling with in life. And when you're out there for an hour and a half and it's you're sweating, you're grinding, the pads are popping, and you're coming off a 6-6 season and things of that nature, when you have a guy and you have coaches that are going to stop and be like, listen, right there, everybody, see what number 21 did on the camera? Like that's what we need to do. Like, good job. Not to say that it wasn't happening previously, but it feels like that is in much more plentiful supply this time around.
Yeah, and I think, and again, it's like you wonder, you look at where Florida State is right now and how this is going. Like, if Willie Taggart's here 5 years, he hasn't been anywhere 5 years, but if he was here for 5 years, would they still be doing the worm at practice or, the electric slide or whatever?
That's true.
You wonder, like, how do you evolve and how do you keep it fresh? Again, like when Jimbo came in, everybody was hungry for organization and discipline and all that stuff, and it worked. And then over time, it's like, man, you gotta come up with something fresh. And I think it's the same thing here. This is a great feeling and a great atmosphere for what they need right now. But, you wonder 3 or 4 years later, is that still going to be – the newness will wear off. And at what point it boils down to the substance. And that'll be the trick for Willie Taggart. Even if they have success in the short term, which I think they will, because there is a lot of talent. This is a really ready-made program. He's going to have to maintain it over long term. That's the trick, because it's one thing to be a change agent. It's a whole different ball game to maintain that success over the long term.
Let's talk about that when we come back. What's more difficult, being the tough dude and then softening up your act, or being the more loose guy and then having to tighten up? Well, we'll talk about that next here as we wrap up the program. Wake Up War Chant Tuesday edition with Irish O'Fell joining us here in studio.
You're locked in to Wake Up War Chant on 97.9 ESPN Radio.
What's up, everybody? I'm Aslan alongside Irish O'Fell on this edition of Wake Up War Chant. Corey Clark will be back with us tomorrow. The show brought to you by For the Table Hospitality, and there are 3 locations over in the College Town District. Central, Madison Social, and Township. You know what to do already. All right, so some real quick injury stuff from yesterday. Cole Minshew, we noticed. He got a boot or something like that on?
He had a boot on his left foot, was on one of those little push cart thingies, kind of keeping pressure off it. It's hard to know.
The scooter, you mean?
Yeah, the little scooter thing.
Right.
The way they do it now, it's kind of hard to, the way the practices are scheduled now with the interviews before the practice, we interview Willie Taggart, and then 2 minutes later, here comes Cole Minshew wheeling around. So we weren't able to ask Willie Taggart about that injury, but we will on Wednesday.
Kind of clever how they do that. There's a method to the madness, if you will. All right, last segment we were talking about just the differing, obviously, philosophies and just personalities of coaches, no matter where you are, professional level or the collegiate level, or maybe even heck the youth level. So you talk about being an agent of change, which is what Willie comes in, flips programs, and hasn't stayed anywhere to take it to a different level. I guess this is obviously a different sort of reclamation project, if you will. So I don't know. I mean, do you think? Is it harder to be a guy like Jimbo and be gruff and old school, and then flip the switch and try to be like Brian Kelly and start doing yoga and being more laid back, or is it being a guy like Willie? And we're not saying that he lacks any sort of toughness or discipline, but when you're in year 6 and things are getting stale and it's like, all right, maybe we should stop having a water break dance, but I need to keep things fun, but I also need to kind of like lay the foot down. I think it's easier, perhaps. I think it's easier if you're a guy like Willie and you pivot to that, because like when you're known as the disciplinarian, when you're always putting your foot down and you loosen up, I don't know if it ever feels real, if it feels like a genuine sort of change.
I think it's probably both ways. The problem coaches get into is when they stop being real. You know what I'm saying? When they stop being real, when they start
being real and start the real world, Tallahassee.
When they, when if you try to be something that you're not, I think that's when you get into trouble. So you can make changes. And I think what's interesting about Willie Taggart, and I think is going to be fascinating to watch, is he is trying to, and I guess this is what he's done before, and maybe he's had luck with or success with it, is kind of be the fun guy and have the fun staff and be cool and do all that, while also ramping up the accountability and dependability and all that, because, like the way he's handled DeAndre Francois coming out publicly, challenging, calling him high school Harry and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. I mean, that he's saying that he's going to be that demanding on those guys while also kind of having fun. So that's a tough balance. I think that's to me, of all those scenarios, that's the toughest one to do, is to try to be like the guy everybody likes, but also that they respect and they're going to toe the line around you. I think you got to be special to pull that off. I think a lot of, it's easy to be one speed. It's easy to be, man, that's a mean, gruff guy and just make everybody hide from you like the Wizard of Oz. Or, when you're behind the curtain. Or it's one thing to be the guy everybody loves, but maybe they don't really respect. So I think what he's trying to do, if it works, I think can be ultra successful and maybe successful over the long term. But I think it's harder to do what he's trying to do than to just pick one or the other and then switch later on.
Do we know if they call him Coach Taggart or if they call him Willie, the players? I was always so weird that Jimbo had this, we had this picture of who he was and everybody knows, just like Jimbo. Jimbo said this, like, what? Like, you can call him Jimbo?
Yeah, a lot of people around the program, former players and people like that who would raise their eyebrows about the fact that the players called Jimbo. I think it's Coach Taggart. From everything, I don't think I've heard any players calling him Willie. But I also think, that was one of the issues, man, I think Jimbo, Coach Fisher, I think he had, was that there were times that there wasn't consistency in the message. It's been a while.
It took a while. It's buried at the bottom of everything, man. It took a while to pull that out. So, yeah.
But it's, that was there was a lack of consistency in his message. I think there were times where he talked the tough talk about discipline, but then didn't follow through. And in terms of disciplining players, suspending players, kicking players off. And I think when those mixed messages become a huge problem.
So we'll see how that all sort of levels off after year 5. We're thinking at that point, 2 national championships, 3 ACC titles under the belt probably by then.
Couple rings, yeah.
Nice piece of cake. So Florida State baseball obviously chasing that elusive ring when it comes to getting to Omaha and winning things. We'll get A sneak preview of one of the best teams in the nation as they take on number 2 Florida right now. They'll play in Jacksonville tonight. Well, let me see here. I can't even see what time it is. They should put that at the top of it. I would imagine 6 p.m., right?
That's an awesome
It's on SEC Network. It's on SEC Network. Look at that. It's on television, everybody. Awesome. Andrew Karp going to go against Jack Leftwich. Leftwich 2-1 with a 5.40 ERA for the Gators. Mike Martin right now 12 games away from taking over the now late Augie Garrido's record for all-time wins. So Florida State stringing together another conference series victory over North Carolina this time around. Oh, boy, it sure be nice to beat Florida.
Man, it would be you talk about it, it's becoming an albatross. I mean, Florida State has really struggled the last, I don't know if it's 4 or 5 years against the Gators after having a run of success where they were doing really well against them. And it's I think it feels like it's becoming mental. The Florida State's not even playing well when they play in these games, and this is a good chance. I mean, the nice thing about that game is I think the last one was in Gainesville. This one in Jacksonville is that great venue because you got about 10 or 11,000 people there, half Florida State fans, half Florida fans, basically. It's a great environment, and Florida State's usually played pretty well over there. I don't have the year-by-year record in front of me, but I feel like they played pretty well in those games in Jacksonville. I think it would be huge. It would just be huge, especially because they've won a couple series in a row now, starting to feel a little bit better about themselves.
I'm going to say something sacrilege here, and I'm not doing it to be the hot take guy. Is it really that big of a deal? I don't want to lose to Florida in anything. I don't want to lose to Florida in diving. If we had equestrian, I wouldn't want to lose to Florida. But ultimately, I don't know how much of this weighs on the psyche of a Florida State fan. I don't know how many guys walking and ladies walk into the office.
No, I'm talking about more about the coaching staff and the players. I think it's okay. And in terms of recruiting, because Florida just won a national title for several years now. They've kind of recruited at a higher level, certainly when it comes to pitching. Florida State has started to make some inroads. They've started to kind of push back and get some of those power arms that Florida's been getting. But man, if it looks like you're an inferior program, I mean, it's going to make it tough, and it's going to continue to make it tough when you're trying to recruit the best of the best.
I just think it's like a midweek series, and I know they're throwing their number 4 guy. Florida State's throwing their number 4 guy, and your lineup is still the same. But I don't know how much that really. I mean, they got to get to Omaha and do better than Florida. That's what it really comes down to. And I don't know how much. Maybe now it's that much more of pressure ratcheting up because they've gone to Omaha and they've walked out the last team standing. Finally, Florida and.
You can't steady lose to your rival. Like, I know it's not a normal series, but still you can't lose to your rival 2 out of 3 times or 3 out of 3 times every year for like 4 or 5 years. I mean, it's bad.
I'm not saying it's a good thing. It just, Florida State's never been in the position where they've won a football national championship and lost to Florida. It's all or nothing, right? It's like they beat Miami and they beat Florida and they win the national title. So you've never had to balance those two things. At the end of the day, if this team goes to Omaha and wins, but has now lost 13 of their last 14 against Florida. Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it doesn't ruin your season or anything like that. But, it
wouldn't hurt. Listen, it wouldn't hurt. It wouldn't hurt, but I don't know. I mean, as a fan, I'm just saying, as a guy who wants to see Florida State baseball do well, I'm almost resigned. I'm like, whatever. Probably going to lose to them. Whatever. Let's just win it. Let's win in May. And
no, it's definitely much more important what happens later.
But it sounds like the staff is and the team is.
It's very important to them, and I think it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. I think if the longer that streak goes on, the longer it is to dig yourself out of it. Because I think they're kind of starting. It's now, it's in their head to where something's going to go wrong. I mean, the last game they were up big early and then just fell apart. And I mean, you just see it in sports all the time. When somebody's got your number, it's hard to break that. And again, you just don't want this to go on forever because of what it means in terms of recruiting and in terms of, just the rivalry and the bragging rights. But no, I don't think it affects their season. If they lose all 3 games to Florida, it doesn't change their chances of making a run in Omaha.
And that's ultimately what matters. So Florida State 20-5, ranked 5th in the nation. Florida 21-5. It'll be over at the baseball grounds at Jacksonville, 6:00. Again, Andrew Karp will get the start on the bump for the Noles. 6:00. It'll be on SEC Network if you have that channel. Dave Neal, Kyle Pearson on the call. I like KP. Kyle Pearson's a good guy.
He's a good guy. Seems like I caught some of the national championship game, or not national championship game. It felt like the national championship game, the Duke-Kansas game on the radio.
Fantastic.
And the Kevin Kugler, is that his name?
Yes.
He's good.
He's really good.
That's like known, huh? Because I was listening to it and I was like, man, this guy's good.
He does a lot for Westwood One, which is like the main, I think, radio on CBS. Yeah. So, Kugler's really good. All roads lead to Mississippi, by the way. That kid for Kansas that lit up, that Malik Newman kid, he's from Jackson, Mississippi. Covered him, too. Right. So got to cover him and Cam Akers. Pretty sweet.
They all can't wait to get out of that state.
Well,
I'm just saying.
It's crazy.
Just saying.
His father played at Mississippi State. He committed to Mississippi State, played there for a year, had turf toe, was horrible. Then he transferred to Kansas. Everyone is like, what a bum. He's a bust.
He's 32 yesterday.
And then Hank's 32.
How do you get turf? You get turf toe in basketball?
I guess. He had like a toe injury that was, it just hampered him the whole time. He was nothing. I mean,
he had to get out of Starkville.
Yeah, and the crazy thing was there was actually a kid who played in a surrounding town from Jackson who was like a 2 or 3 star afterthought. I think he actually was like SEC rookie there, like Quindary Witherspoon. He was just like, he blew him out the water. I was like, wow, like, golly, that's crazy how that worked out. Because that Malik Newman kid at one point was like the number 3 overall prospect in the entire nation. Mm-hmm. And they're like, he's a bum. He's just going to get another handout from another program, another bag, and then boom. I mean, I'm happy for the kid because I'm like, he's got to be toast, right? I mean, if you can't make it in Starkville, but good on him. So, and hopefully the Noles again will pull out a game and over Florida, and we can say good on them too. So yeah, if they went out from here, Ira, 11 would break the record on Sunday after the spring game, Garden and Gold game. So
that would be pretty sweet, man.
It'd be good for the local economy, boys. So no pressure as you hop on the bus and go over there to play the Gators. Get the win. Yeah, I mean, shoot. Imagine. I mean, like that'd be crazy though, right? Sunday. Yeah. After the Garnet and Gold game, do we still call it that, or is it just the spring game now?
I think some people call it the Garnet and Gold game, but
it's 90s. Let's do tradition. We'll call it the Garnet and Gold.
Sounds
game.
Good. Let's bring it back.
We'll bring you back one of these times too. Thanks for always joining us here, Ira. We appreciate it, man.
Glad to pitch it.
You're the man. It's 5-star Chaffel. Go on to iTunes, leave a 5-star review. Also, if you go on to War Chant, we're going to start doing Renegade Express, where you submit your questions and your gripes and all that. We're going to start doing it on Thursdays. So if you haven't already, hop on to the Tribal Council on warchant.com and submit a question for that. For Ira, I'm Aslan. Thanks for listening. It's Wake Up War Chant. Jeff Cameron coming up at 3.
The excitement of the Willie Taggart era at Florida State is in full force. That's why now's the perfect time to sign up at warchant.com. Warchant.com will have wall-to-wall coverage of spring football practice, including the latest on position battles, coach and player interviews, video features, and in-depth analysis. Warchant.com's 3-team writers, Gene Williams, Ira Chaffel, and Corey Clark, have 50 years of experience covering the Seminoles. And Warchant.com is the only FSU media outlet with a dedicated, full-time recruiting analyst in Tallahassee with the latest on the 2019 class. For your 30-day free trial subscription, head to warchant.com and use promo code WARCHANT30.